So I'm just heading out onto my back deck here. And I've been thinking about some things. I thought, you know what? I'm going to make a video just to talk a little bit about who we are as people. Got to put some cushions on the chair because everything's a little bit damp. Looks like we had a pretty heavy dew last night. So there's a few things that have been on my mind, and I'm just going to talk about that a little bit and address a few criticisms that have come up over the years. And that's not the main point of the video. The main point of the video is just to talk about us and the way we do things here at Sandy Ridge. And I'll make another video here shortly just showing more. This is just going to mostly be me talking. So we actually fell in love with golden retrievers about 6-7 years ago. We were visiting some friends. I mean, I've always loved dogs, always loved golden retrievers. And we were visiting some friends of ours in Alberta who have been raising Goldens for as long as we've known them now, about 15 years. And that was my main source of contact with golden retrievers years ago when we would visit them. And I spent a lot of time over there because I actually used to work with them as well. And we ended up taking home an older Golden from them who they had kind of inherited when a friend had passed away. And then we ended up taking him home with us to Manitoba, and his name was Buddy. And you'd have to go back a long ways in our YouTube channel. I'm not even sure. No, we weren't making YouTube videos back then when we got Buddy. But Buddy is the reason we fell in love with the breed. And my wife especially as well, because he was such a gentle dog. He was a big Golden. He was very well trained as a bird dog and had a file this thick of pedigrees and certifications. He was a stud dog in the States, actually. And we never did breed him because by the time we got him, he was getting pretty old. Well, he was only 7, but he ended up having some arthritis issues and he couldn't physically do the deed for one. But I guess in hindsight, I'm also glad we didn't breed him because who knows, we might have been passing along some congenital issues. But he is how and why we fell in love with Goldens. And we, at the time, were just on the verge of buying this property and planning to build. And this is where I'm going to address the first criticism that we've had a few times. Because if you look around at our place here, I think we have a beautiful place. We live in the middle of 80 acres of forest. And right now things look almost as good as they could because we finally had some rain yesterday. Things are green. The grass it's incredible how fast it's recovering. It was completely brown a week ago. One of the criticisms that we have is you're getting rich off of all these puppies you're making. Well, let me tell you something. First of all, land is way cheaper here in Manitoba than in other parts of the world, especially out on the West Coast, or I don't know what it's like on the East Coast or in Newfoundland, but right where we are is particularly, like, this land was zoned basically, it's zoned agriculture, but it's absolutely worthless for ag. It's pure sand. You can't grow anything here unless you've got a lot of water. And the reason it's so lush and green and bush like right where we are is because this ground has never been disturbed. This is virgin bushland. As soon as you disturb it, if you were to tear down those trees, it wouldn't come back for 30 years. Now, there's a fairly good layer of humus, maybe, 10 to 12 inches deep. So as long as you don't disturb it too badly, you can still grow stuff. But look, right next to that concrete pad, that is pure sand. Beach sand. Like literally beach sand. You can't grow a crop in this land. All it's good for is maybe pasture for cattle. And you can't overgraze it because it won't come back. So literally, this land from an agricultural standpoint is worthless, so that makes it cheaper for residential. Some people thought we were crazy to build here. Remains to be seen 5 years in, and we love it. Anyway, back to the point. We're getting rich off of our puppies, and that's how we can afford this. Well, let me tell you something. We did a lot of careful math when we bought the property and when we started building here. And you know what our bank said? You guys really should wait 2 years before you build. You can't afford this. They were pretty dang close to right. Those first 2 years after we built and moved in here were tough. I've always worked full time. I've always worked hard. I've always worked a lot of long days, and I've always been able to make a good living at whatever I did. And those first 2 years after we moved here, we were down to the bone every month, every paycheck. I'm telling you, it's just the way it was. And the puppies certainly saved our bacon. We didn't get rich, but it kept us alive. That's an exaggeration, a little dramatic. But it's what allowed us to get through those first 2 years. And it's extra money for sure. I still work full time, always have. I'm a hardworking guy. I put in a lot of hours. And I like working. It's not a problem. Certainly not complaining about working, but it's not an easy life living out in the country. We have a 15-minute drive to get anywhere. So we burn a lot of fuel. Costs a fair bit of money to live out in the country. And things aren't getting cheaper either. We got 4 drivers in the family. We'll have another driver in a year and a half. So we got a lot of vehicles that we got to maintain, just like everybody else. We're just like anyone else. So are we getting rich? No. Our goal with the puppies was to try to pay all of our monthly bills on an annual basis. That's it. Just to help out. I'd say we're close. In recent months, we've taken on some extra obligations with getting our new business off the ground. So now I would say no, they don't cover all the bills. That's beside the point. Just helping you understand when people say we're getting rich off of our puppies, we're like everybody else. We have a mortgage. We have bills to pay every month. Fortunately, our taxes are relatively low and the cost of our property was relatively low. So we started off on a decent foot. So to answer that question, another comment that people make, which it always strikes me as incredibly ironic, somewhat hypocritical, and a little bit ridiculous. So here's our backyard. Here's our house. This is literally the back of the house. This is the back of the house. Here's our backyard. We often get referred to as backyard breeders. As you can see, there are no puppies in the backyard. Our kennel is on the other side of the garage, which is to the side of our house. So technically speaking, we would be side yard breeders. Now, that's tongue-in-cheek, right? We're not backyard breeders, we're side yard breeders. Let's just be really specific here. Does it matter to the puppies which side of the yard we breed them on? Literally, BYB, backyard breeders, is a term that you will find all over the internet. It's said with disdain and disgust and venom and hostility and anger and disgust and all this stuff, as if where the puppies are raised calls into question the character of the people raising them, calls into question the quality of life the puppies are going to have, calls into question the genetics, the health. Because if you raise your puppies in your backyard, they're bad puppies, unhealthy, poorly treated. It's just ridiculous. And you'll see this on Facebook too. certain breeders will refer to people like us as backyard breeders, and they'll use that little acronym or abbreviation, BYB, and they'll talk about people like us with just absolute disdain, like we're scum of the earth, like we are subhuman. Here's the deal. What do we want for the puppies? You, me, and the rest of the planet. We want them happy. We want them healthy. We want them raised in a safe and comfortable environment. We want them to go to good homes and have a long, healthy life. We have to refer to the goal. Then we have to look at the process. You can't get to a goal without having a good process. And you can't substitute a good goal by having a good process. And you can't substitute a good process by having an altruistic goal. What do I mean by all of that? Well, if someone's a registered breeder, that would mean, okay, let's put this in perspective. We'll look around here at our yard. Right now, we are technically a backyard breeder. But let's say tomorrow, I pull up all the paperwork on my dogs and I start registering all my puppies. We would instantaneously go from being backyard breeders to a registered breeder, but I'm going to stay on the same property. I'm going to raise my dogs here at Sandy Ridge in the same kennel. And I'm going to do everything exactly the same way I do now, but I'm going to be a registered breeder. And I would move out of the category of a backyard breeder into the category of a Canadian Kennel Club registered breeder. Without changing a single thing about my operation, I would completely change my status in the eyes of certain people and be pulled out of this category of subhuman, disgusting, and I would become a reputable citizen. Okay, do you understand the hypocrisy in this? The paperwork somehow redeems the process. The paperwork redeems the operation. I don't think that the facility itself changes with the paperwork. Whether or not we are registered actually has absolutely no impact on how we raise our dogs, the ethical nature of it, the ethics, the morality, and does it have an impact on the genes, on the health characteristics of our dogs? How can it? How do they know if I've kept up the paperwork? How would they know? How would their genetics know? If I go and, again, revive all my paperwork and registration on the dogs and start registering puppies, how do their genes know now you're not allowed to get sick because you're registered? You understand the hypocrisy and the insanity of thinking that a registration guarantees anything? You know how many people cheat the system? You know how many false registrations there are? A lot. It happens all the time. Wherever there is a process for certifying something, there will be someone to cheat the system. Always, always, always. So here's what we do. We discontinued the registration with our dogs when we bought the breeding dogs, the males and the females. Ginger, Sandy, they both came from Faith, who came from a registered family. Cooper here, who came from registered stock as well. We immediately discontinued registration. Why? Well, let me tell you the kinds of comments we get from registered breeders. We stopped advertising on Kijiji too for two reasons. One of them was just the attack we came under when we would register puppies, but also because I'll leave it at that. We would get, when I would advertise a litter of puppies, we would get registered breeders with just venom and hostility telling us that we should take all our puppies out and kill them because we were polluting the gene pool and ruining the breed. You know what ruins a breed? When the genetics are too pure. When you do not introduce new strains into a genetic line, you start to introduce genetic weakness into certain areas and genetic predispositions to certain diseases and certain conditions and joint problems and cancers and stuff like this. You need to have at least a little bit of genetic material in a bloodline to keep the dogs healthy, which is why even the registration process, like the Canadian Kennel Club and the American Kennel Club associations, allow up to 1/8 of another breed in a pure bloodline. Pure bloodline can have up to 1/8 of another breed. Why do they do that? Because they know that if it's 100% pure for too many generations, it leads to predisposition to certain things. Most often it's cancers and joint issues. And by the way, cancer is predominantly a metabolic issue, not a genetic issue, which means the environment and the food that a dog eats has far more to do with the likelihood of getting cancer than the genetics. Our dogs are raised away from chemical. So here's something that you won't know when you watch our videos or when you hear other people accuse us of things, but what you won't know is our property is 100% chemical free. We do not use fertilizer in our garden. We don't use Roundup on the weeds. We don't use any chemicals on this yard, unless you think of dish detergent as chemical or whatever. But in our physical environment where we have contact with plants and breathe the air, there's nothing. The dogs are never going to walk on grass that's been sprayed with some kind of a weed killer or fertilizer and then lick it and get it into their system. They're not going to, because we use zero chemical. Do you think that has an impact on the dog's overall health, when for an entire lifetime they never come in contact with harmful chemicals? I think it's going to help. What about the food? Well, we've been using Nutrisource, which is a grain-free pet food. We've been using it for years. Okay, now we're going to address point number one. Again, are we getting rich? Well, the food we serve our dogs is expensive. And we have a lot of dogs. We refuse to compromise on the food. Why? Because of cancer and coat health and overall health of their internal organs and everything. Like when we switched to Nutrisource, we stopped having problems with dandruff. We stopped having problems with a lot of smelly poop. And anyways, I'm not going to go into all of that. Well, we spend over $10,000 per year on dog food. We could probably spend about half of that if we would buy cheap dog food. But we don't. Why? Because we want our dogs to be healthy, and we want all the puppies going out the door to be healthy as possible. Hurts a little bit when we go to the feed store in town and we load up on dog food. It's $600 every time. Every time we go, we'll buy, 5, 6, 8, 10 bags. That's $400, $500, $600, $700 at a time. And that's like at least once a month. Our dog's food bill is equal to our family food bill. Think about that. So that cuts deeply into the money that we sell our puppies for. That's the bottom line. And we don't compromise on that. Critters and Things in Newfoundland must be wondering why all of a sudden there's this huge interest in Nutrisource, because I think they're one of the only suppliers in Newfoundland. And from what I hear, they're often sold out because we send as many people as we can to them for Nutrisource, because it's just been such a good quality food for us and we have confidence in it. When people make this accusation of backyard breeders, they have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. They don't know what the genetics of our dogs are. They don't know what the registration history is. They don't know what we're feeding them. But to instantly call into question the quality of the puppies and the genetics simply because we don't raise them in a registered facility, it's irrelevant. Let's put this into perspective. I have spent the better part of 25 years in and out of the construction industry. I've never left it altogether, but for the last 10 and a half years, I did a lot less because I was working full-time in the agricultural industry selling farm machinery, but I always did some building on the side. I built our whole place here. We did all the concrete work. We did all the construction, and I've always done side jobs for other friends to help them out. But I've been in the construction industry for 25 years. I've never gotten my red seal. I'm not a red seal carpenter. I'm not a red seal anything. But I've got 25 years of experience. Do you think I'm an expert? Am I a professional? 25 years has to count for something, right? But I have no certifications. I got no registrations. I've got a couple small ones that aren't terribly relevant. I'm a certified foundation construction, whatever. I can do ICF basements. I'm certified for that. And I've done one, my own. But I've built many, many, many houses. I've built many garages. I've built many decks. I've poured acres of concrete. Every single house I ever built, every garage, every deck, and every concrete slab I ever poured are still standing to this day. So if you were to go back 25 years or 10 years or 15 years ago and said, that's a backyard construction guy, and because he has no certifications, nothing he does is of any value. That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. The certification and the paperwork, you know what, let's put a sharper edge on this. Even more years ago when I was in the trucking industry, yeah, I've done a few things. The guy that I was working for wanted to hire a new driver, and so he put him in a truck with me for a few days and said, tell me what you think of this guy. Well, this guy had gone through driving school. I had never gone through driving school. I got my class 1 when on my 24th birthday. Things were different back then. You didn't have to go to driving school. And I've had my class 1 now for 23 years, I guess, 23 and a half. So we put this guy in the truck with me who had been through driving school. He was a professional, certified, trained class 1 driver. And he was absolutely awful. He couldn't drive. So I gave some reservations, and we ended up hiring him. And about 2 months later, he got fired. He did a lot of terribly dangerous things, and he was not confident, and he just was not a driver. It's the bottom line. But he had the paperwork. He had the certification. The driving school signed off on him. So now, to give the register guys a bit of credit, I'm trying to think what they probably do better than we do. I'm trying to think. I'll keep thinking on that. So let's talk about facility for a bit. You can go through our videos and see everything. We have nothing to hide here. I actually just went and bought a new air conditioner for our dog kennel because one of them quit working. Actually, they both quit working, so I went and bought one new one. I took the other one out. That should have been working. I gave it a really, really good cleaning with a pressure washer, and now it's working good. So the air in there is much more comfortable. Humidity is down, and we can control the temperature perfectly. We have a heated floor. Again, because of my years in construction, I can build to a certain standard a lot more inexpensively than some, simply because I do it all myself. I don't have to hire anything out. So we have a really, really well insulated, heated, and air conditioned dog kennel. Can you imagine what our hydro bill is here? It costs a lot to run the heat. It's all electric here. We don't have natural gas. It's another, $5,000-$6,000 a year, our hydro bill here. And a certain percentage of that will be the dog kennel. It's just the way it is. Because we want the dogs to be safe and comfortable. Okay, so now we have to address the concern of actually raising our dogs in the kennel as opposed to in the house. That's our house. We wouldn't raise cows in our house. We wouldn't raise horses or pigs in the house. Wouldn't really want to raise rabbits in the house. We've had hamsters. I don't like hamsters at all. But we wouldn't raise cats in our house. I know some people do. And some people would raise dogs in their house, but are we doing a disservice by not raising animals in the house? I grew up in a farming family. You wouldn't have got an animal in my grandpa's house, on the old farmhouse. My grandparents were quite poor, especially on my dad's side of the family. They didn't have much of a house, believe me. They never would have had an animal in the house. My grandma kept that house spotless. You didn't have animals in the house. My grandpa was a humanitarian and an animal lover. Deeply, deeply loved animals. And his animals were so well looked after, but they were all raised in the barn. Cats, dogs, cows, pigs, everything was raised in the barn. We do have an animal in the house. We have our little dog, our little terrier in the house. She doesn't shed. We have allergies. All of our kids have different allergies to pet dander and hair and stuff like that. So it's not even a question of being able to raise them in the house. Well, then some people might say, well, then you shouldn't be raising dogs. Well, really? People with allergies shouldn't be able to have dogs? It's just the inconsistency of the accusations. So we chose to build a facility. Probably after all is said and done, we spent close to $50,000 on it, so that we could raise dogs in a safe, comfortable, healthy way outside of our house. We still spend lots of time with them every single day. Every single day we're with our dogs because we love our dogs and we love sharing the breed, the golden retrievers, with other people. And right now, as we're sending puppies out, this is one of the most rewarding times in the puppy business. We are getting photos and videos from people as they receive their puppies. We get 1-year birthday updates and anniversaries. Every time we sell another batch of puppies, we add to the list of people that are going to keep us updated. And it's hard to keep up because there's literally hundreds of people, So is the only ethical way of raising dogs in the house? That's one of the accusations we get, because we're transparent. We don't hide stuff. We show the inside of our kennel. Yes, it has a concrete floor, but it's a heated floor. And yes, there's chain link, but that's for their safety. We have wild animals around here. And we actually used to let our dogs roam free. Well, you can't fence in 80 acres. At least I can't afford to do that. And they dig under anyway. They get out. We've had dogs go missing and never come back. We've had neighbors, instead of just telling us your dog is roaming, take him to the pound, cost us money to get him back. And we're like, you know what? For the safety of our dogs, we'll build a large run and a kennel that they can come and go from as they please. It'll be warm in the winter, cool in the summertime, and we will take them out and do recreation with them every single day. That's a big commitment. Do they have to be raised in the house to be treated well? So let's put another twist on this. And this is for every one of you that may or may not watch this video, and probably most people won't watch this far. And this is not an accusation against anybody else, but how many of you who are watching this, whether you're just a pet owner or a breeder of some kind, have this amount of space? There's a lot of people with large dogs, golden retrievers, who live in apartments and condos. They have no yard. Is that okay? I'm certainly not the judge. I know the breed well enough to know they can adapt to virtually any lifestyle. And a lot of people that I know who live in condos and apartments are more active. They go out, they go biking, they go hiking and camping and swimming, and they do all kinds of stuff with their dogs. In fact, they're probably more active than we are many times. So the idea that raising dogs in the house is the one and only best possible way. What about people that have pets and live in the city and they don't have a big yard? You know? Sorry, I'm distracted by the robin. I can hear her in her nest below my deck here. Anyway, I don't want to just address criticism, because I want to talk a bit more about just how we do life here. We have 3 kids, and they're deeply involved in everything we do here. We love our children, and our 2 oldest ones really aren't kids anymore. My son is 19 and a half. My daughter is 17 and a half. They're both well on their way into the adult world, and my youngest son is 14 and a half. And they're involved in every aspect of what we do here, whether it's the yard work, raising the dogs, or helping me in my business. Our family unit is very tight. We're very close. We spend a lot of time together. It's probably not what you normally see in the world. Most of our friends they almost can't understand how we do it. How do you guys stay so close to your kids? How do you know what's going on in their lives so much? And how is it that you've raised your kids to this point where they tell you everything? I'm like, you know what? It's by the grace of God. We've done our best to parent up to this point, and we'll continue to. But I certainly can't take all the credit. By God's grace, our kids are just amazing kids. And they love animals. They love people. And I'll tell you right now, and this might offend some people, but we care about people more than animals, okay? We love animals like crazy. I love wildlife. I love our animals. And every time I visit a homeowner, when we're putting up eaves troughing, or when I was working in the egg industry and I'd visit a farm, I would carry dog treats in the door of my truck. I always like to connect with the local pets. We love animals, but we love people more. People come first. That might offend some people. It shouldn't. It really shouldn't. People should always come first. And if that offends you, well, okay, I guess it offends you. But primarily, our goal is to connect with people first. And secondly is the animals. And the puppies are a great way to build relationships with people and make connections. I'm also about long-term relationships, which means it does me no good to sell a poor health puppy to somebody. So it would be of no advantage to me to have bad genetics in my kennel, because it's going to lead to a short-term relationship and long-term frustration for someone else. The odds are, it's just a numbers game, eventually there's going to be a health concern. We've had 2 that I can think of. Both of them were non-congenital. They were just, if you have a certain number of dogs of any breed, you're going to have a certain issue pop up on a certain percentage basis. And one of those was just about a year and a half ago, I guess. Young couple, both in school. Neither one of them, they weren't making a lot of money, and it was a stretch for them to buy a puppy in the first place. And 6 months after they got their puppy, they discovered it had an issue with a ligament. And it was not congenital. It was not part of the genetic makeup of the dog or the DNA. It just was simply something that shows up in X number of dogs of any breed. And to fix it required about an $1,800 surgery. And it was 100% fix, one-time deal. And they contacted me, and they said, very clearly, this is not congenital. The vet made it clear. But would you consider participating in the treatment? Well, we contributed. Got to be careful how many people I say that to, because if everybody starts coming back to us with their vet bills, we're going to go broke pretty quick. But the reason we had no obligation, because it wasn't a genetic issue and it wasn't anything we did. We had absolutely no obligation to do it. But here's why we did it. We've been a young couple. strapped for cash in school. We've been there. We can relate to that. And people were good to us. People have helped us along the way. So we helped this couple. It was our choice. We can't do it every time. Right now, out of our current litters, at least 3 or 4 are leaving our yard without any money down, or at least a very small amount, because people want dogs, can't always afford the going rate all up front. Some people are struggling with PTSD or anxiety or depression or other things, and a golden retriever is such a fantastic companion dog or therapy dog. And I feel bad. Like I can't give all my dogs away, right? But I can choose to help people. So out of the current litters that we have, some of these dogs, I've got a very small deposit, and I'm allowing people to pay me over time. I can do that. I can't do it for everybody. And for those of you that have paid in full, thank you. I hope you understand that, this is what allows us to help where we can and when we can. We did give away 1 puppy out of this litter. But again, we feel it, right? We feel it when that happens. I guess we could talk for hours about who we are and what we do, and I am not trying to toot my own horn or pat ourselves on the back or anything like that. But sometimes I just wish people would take the time to get to know us a bit more before they make judgments about us. There's a lot of people, their first question is, how much, and are they registered? I give them an answer and that's it. Don't hear from them again. Okay, I get it on the price thing. And I get it on the registration thing too. But it's one thing to ask if they're registered and then just move on. It's another thing to attack. Now, I'm probably making it sound like we get attacked all the time. We don't. We really don't. But I respond to everything. And maybe that's a mistake on my part. And maybe I'll stop doing that. But I just feel like I need to protect or stand up for those of us who are backyard breeders. There's a few others in our Facebook groups, and I won't mention any names. But I know they're raising quality dogs. I know they're treating them well. I know they have a fantastic reputation with their buyers. And I think someone has to stand up and take it on the chin once in a while. And because as soon as you defend yourself, the heat keeps on coming. These people that attack, and I'll tell you right now, a lot of times it's the registered breeders that come after us. They want to put us out of business. They want to destroy us. And they have done harm. They certainly have. And if you're one of them and that makes you feel good, shame on you. And maybe now, after learning a little bit more about who we are, maybe you'll think twice. Maybe not. Some people don't care. I personally would just never be able to live with myself if I did harm to somebody else's livelihood or their emotional well-being or what have you. Anyway, like I said, probably very few people are going to watch this whole video, but it's there for the future. And I'll probably post a second part at some point. But if anybody wants to know a bit more about us, that's it. This is a little bit. There's more to it than this, a lot more, but this is primarily related to the dogs and so on. Appreciate all the folks that have been kind and loving and supportive, and be blessed. Have a fantastic week. We'll see you in the next one.